I am old. Ancient, even. Some may disagree with me, especially actual old people, but I remember when the first Iron Man movie came out. 17 years ago. Granted, I was but a toddler, but that doesn't change the fact that I have now experienced 3 separate decades on this earth. I am old. So can someone please explain to me how this thing that came out when I was still learning to talk properly is still going? These franchises have been around for almost as long as I can remember, even longer in most cases, and I am beginning to question whether or not that is a good thing. To be fair, it is quite the achievement to have a franchise be successful for so long that you have second-generation fans, but it kind of defeats the purpose of such an achievement if you constantly have to compromise quality in order to reach your quota for yearly Disney Plus shows. A business model which has resulted in a lot of franchises slowing down recently, probably because people stopped watching them. And they've now started pivoting to these big event movies to draw people in for one huge cash out, as opposed to milking them a little bit every month. But with this shift in how franchises are managing themselves, is it actually worth it? Because these stories have been going on for 17, 48, and in some cases even 62 years. Seriously, Doctor Who is nearly at the retirement age in the UK. And I am beginning to question how much more of these monolithic beasts we actually need. Could it even be worth letting your franchises end? For example, let's take a look at arguably the worst offender of this issue. When Iron Man first came out in 2008, people were taken with it. It was new, it was sleek, the protagonist was an alcoholic. What more could you possibly want from a superhero movie? When the MCU started, it was focused on telling contained, small-scale stories, much like how superhero movies were at the time. Because before the MCU, some forget that all you really had was The Dark Knight, Superman, Spider-Man. The wish of all these superheroes crossing over was only ever really materialized when you played with action figures or just, read the source material. Nowadays, you can't go more than 2 seconds without a crossover happening. For example, have you ever thought about how the Hulk only ever had one movie in the MCU? After that, his story was exclusively told in other people's movies, and that's where the value of the MCU came from. It was the first superhero universe to create a consistent and honest-to-God good story. Sure, they had the occasional Thor film, but it was an overall success. Until Avengers Endgame. This movie was the de facto endpoint of the MCU, and it's what every post-credit scene have been building up to for nearly my entire memory. The hype was building. Anticipation was at its highest. The big finale came, and everyone clapped. And then they kept going. No. This is the big finale. They've killed off 2 of their big 3. And sure, they set up some new stuff, but that's just some ending fluff. You know, like big finales have. They then decided to bring out Eternals, a movie which nobody really seems to care about, despite the massive consequences for the planet that the rest of the movies take place on. There is now a giant man coming out of the ocean, and nobody cared to at least acknowledge that. One can only assume that they just haven't noticed. But I will give Eternals this. It's better than Ant-Man Quantumania, but that's not exactly high praise considering that nearly every movie passes that bar due to a distinct lack of MODOK. They screwed this up so bad that the Fantastic Four film is somehow an MCU movie that isn't set in the MCU. I think when you start making movies that write out the universe that you've been building up for 2 decades, it might be time to shut it down and start again. The new Avengers movie feels like a desperate move to win back the general public, despite the fact that you're probably going to need about 30 years of film history knowledge in order to actually know what's going on. The casting announcements even included the old X-Men. They're not even a part of your story. And the average person should not be expected to have seen this 25-year-old movie in order to understand the plot of something that comes out next year. The only MCU thing I have both recently cared to go and see and liked is Thunderbolts, because it did what older MCU movies did, where it focused on a smaller scale, contained story with a promise of bigger things coming. It was nothing extravagant, and despite the tagline of the new Avengers, I never felt like it was trying to be a massive finale cash grab, which can't be said for most MCU products right now. Thunderbolts actually made me want to go and see Fantastic Four because of that post-credit scene. By the way, because of the way these videos are produced, that movie isn't out yet. It's July. Sorry. But if it helps, Fantastic Four does look pretty good, so maybe Thunderbolts was a sign of better things to come. Which is something that can't be said for Disney's other massive franchise. You know the one. In school, I knew a girl who once told me that she hadn't seen the original 3 Star Wars movies, and I stopped being friends with her. I was 16. Naturally, this franchise holds a special place in my heart. I do the 6-movie marathon at least once a year. I've seen A New Hope more times than I care to count. I've watched all of the Clone Wars in chronological order twice. And I have on my computer a 5-hour fan edit, which combines Revenge of the Sith, the Season 7 Clone Wars finale, and the first episode of The Bad Batch show. And I've remade it about 7 times. I've also got plenty of Samuel Kim on my playlist. And only true Star Wars fans will know who that is. So when I say that they need to end or at least reboot Star Wars, you might deduce that something has gone horribly wrong. I remember when The Rise of Skywalker came out, I don't think I've ever been more excited for a movie release in my entire life. People were lining up outside of cinemas globally. It was like 1999 all over again. We all went in to see this masterpiece with our retractable lightsabers and Jedi cloaks, and when the opening title crawl came on, everyone cheered. It was a marvel, an experience. And then when the credits finally rolled and that iconic score played for the final time, we all collectively gave up hope. I believe it was Sun Tzu who once said, "Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker caused my divorce." Sun Tzu. And it hasn't gotten better since then. We've had Obi-Wan, we've had The Acolyte, we've had Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, and none of them have been good. They've continued the Rise of Skywalker's trend of having nonsensical plots with boring or just incompetent characters who don't know what they're doing, and somehow, now, lightsabers don't even kill people. It's literally a sword that can cut through anything. I feel like getting stabbed with it might hurt, but these people appear to be able to just walk off their minor through-and-through wounds like it was actually barely an inconvenience.
Oh, really?
Doing this kind of thing completely ruins any cause and effect in your stories, committing an even worse sin than having your movies and TV shows just go on for too long. They're now also boring. I haven't cared about a character looking like they might die in a single Star Wars since The Last Jedi, with one brilliant exception. Andor is my favorite Star Wars thing ever made, and a massive reason for that is it feels like the only piece of Star Wars media made in the past 13 years that actually respects my intelligence. I remember when Andor got announced, I did not care, and then when the first trailer came out, I thought to myself, wow, this trailer looks pretty cool. Too bad the show's gonna be a disappointment. Then when the first episode actually came out, the main character killed a guy in cold blood, and I was so conditioned by what came before that I thought they were only doing that one scene for shock value, basically just to be like, this isn't your dad's Star Wars, cause we're super cool and edgy, leading to me being absolutely shocked when the show continued to be good. Andor is a character-driven thriller, with stakes, a compelling narrative, grounded storytelling, and the auntie from Harry Potter even shows up to deliver some of the coldest dialogue of all time.
Gets to you, doesn't it?
Shut it.
You wanted to stop, but it just keeps coming.
I told you to shut up.
It's when it stops. That's when you really want to start to fret. That's what a reckoning sounds like.
This is the one that actually feels like it's got something to say. Just watch the show. It's good, I promise. It portrays its main character as a morally grey badass who's slowly coming around to the idea of using his skills as a fighter and his inherent charisma to fight the regime that actually took his sister from him. And if you haven't seen the show, go watch the show. It's good. It's the only one that's worth your time, and it actually has something to say. Go watch the show! Unfortunately, however, I don't think this is a sign of better things to come. Even with the extreme quality of Andor, I'm fairly sure that whatever slop Disney decides to pump out next will be probably just more filler, and not even close to the New Hope remake with Sebastian Stan that fans have been asking for. For some reason. Oh, and speaking of Disney ruining things, Doctor Who is a British science fiction show that ran in the 1960s, had a 43-episode run, was cancelled, and then the BBC realised that it would be too much of a loss to their yearly earnings that they had to bring it back. It was even so successful that they're still making the damn thing. Apart from the fact that they aren't. This is one franchise that actually did end. And it's also the one that means the most to me specifically. That's right, everyone. It's time for me to come out. I'm British. Look, here's my Doctor Who collection. I even have some of the Hartnell era on DVD. I can even recite the main theme from memory. The show was cancelled for real in the 80s, then brought back in 1996, only for it not to get picked up. It then came back, for real this time, we pinky promise, in 2005, to widespread critical acclaim. The BBC would milk the show for all it's worth, up until they decided to employ an idiot to write the first female Doctor of all time. Honestly, the wasted potential here is unfathomable. I'm actually not going to talk about the Whittaker era here, because I actually don't have that much of a problem with it, apart from the Timeless Child arc. That, and this era, has been talked to death at this point. No, what I want to talk about is a seemingly quite short-lived Gatwa era, starting with the 60th specials. After the poorly received Whittaker era ended with Power of the Doctor, which in hindsight actually seems like a more appropriate 60th special than what we actually got, the BBC brought back Russell T Davies to head up the show again. He was the man who brought the show back in 2005. And he made 3 specials with David Tennant's 14th Doctor, who really had no reason to show up whatsoever. Seriously, they did this whole mystery around why one of the Doctor's old faces came back, and then just didn't pay it off. Yeah, Russell, I don't think that's how that's supposed to work. But anyway, at the end of these 3 specials, the Doctor is shot by the Toymaker and inexplicably turns into 2 people, which is treated as a cheat code for avoiding death, and still hasn't been explained. But now, Ncuti Gatwa is the 15th Doctor. Terrific! Maybe now the show will be good. We've got our trusted old lead writer at the helm, a young charismatic actor to play the Doctor, and even a little bit of a mystery to sink our teeth into in The One Who Waits. Too bad the show decided that every episode should have the tone of a CBeebies program, and that its protagonist, somebody who is a veteran of the biggest war in the universe, should break down every 2 seconds because they decided to spend their time around a bunch of dying people. The Doctor crying in the past was usually an indicator that something bad had happened. Not that background extra number 3 had suddenly passed away. Then there's the show's reliance on bringing back villains from eras of the show that most people haven't even seen, and treating it like the coolest thing since sliced bread. When I was watching The Legend of Ruby Sunday, right at the end, my dad turned to me and said, "So who's that then?" And he's seen the serial that Sutekh is from. All of these issues combined have led to the BBC putting the show on a long hiatus, which is exactly what they said they were doing last time the show got cancelled. And honestly, it's the reason I'm making this video. Because Doctor Who is tiny in comparison to Star Wars or Marvel, but it is what inspired me to talk about this. Because I never thought I'd be happy to see Doctor Who end, especially considering the fact that it is, to this day, my favorite TV show, even with its many blunders. But if it continued to go along like this, constantly promising to have a return to form and then just being a major disappointment, it wouldn't be anymore. So before that happens for anyone else with a continuity that they love, that's been going on for 10 years or so, just please let it die. Just let your franchises end. And then, of course, reboot them, because that'll make more money. Superman is a good movie, which to some may seem like a hot take, because Henry Cavill is my sweet baby boy. But his continuity was a mess. The tone of his movies were way too dark, and especially towards the end, the DCEU became a graveyard of missed opportunities and promises that could not possibly be delivered on. So, they did the responsible thing and started over. With The Flash.
Yeah. I'm man.
God damn it, there's always something. The Flash is not a good movie, but it is a very good finale to its series of films, because it's emblematic of everything the DCEU was trying to be. That being, whatever the MCU was doing at the time, but worse, and with Gal Gadot.
Kal-El, no!
The new Superman movie changed all of that. It was a bright, fun, colourful advertisement for this new universe and all of its many characters. Personally, my favourite is Jimmy.
You have to promise me we get to hang this weekend.
Uh-huh. How long?
A weekend.
All weekend?
It created this precedent for a brand new world with potential and whimsy, and notably, none of what came before. Because this isn't just a new look for an older franchise, this is a full-on reboot. There's no Henry Cavills, there's no Batflex, and there's certainly no Ezra Millers. But not to worry, I'm sure they'll employ at least one cult leader to be a Justice League member. Maybe it'll be Nathan Fillion. That'd be funny. Oh, and also, bring back Henry Cavill to play Batman. I desperately want this. Out of all of these massive franchises, DC is the only one I can talk about without an air of cynicism, because it actually looks like it's going to be good. Because it's nothing like what came before. It's a whole new world, and I think that Marvel, Star Wars, and especially Doctor Who could learn something from this. That being that if you want your franchise to keep going, you have to both let it end and bring it back in a new form. Preferably with Sebastian Stan. And while you're at it, if you could chuck some of that Disney money my way for my creative contribution, I wouldn't mind being backed by a monolithic corporation.